From Los Angeles, we're pleased to welcome longtime MLS head coach and Bruce Arena's assistant in the 2006 World Cup, Curt Onalfo. And Curt, this is certainly an occasion that we wish we didn't have to talk about. Hope that we were going to be having you on the show to talk about a World Cup appearance for Team USA. But considering that this just happened a few hours ago and we're all still digesting it, what's your reaction to the U.S. missing the World Cup the way that it did?
It's devastating. I mean, I was actually in downtown Manhattan Beach with a lot of soccer people, and then just, avid fans, and it was just absolute silence. Just one of those times where you're dumbfounded. You feel like it's not real, like it didn't happen, and then reality quickly, sets in, and it's a devastating day for soccer in our country.
Given the field conditions and the fact that they just played a few days ago, it still looked to me like they didn't have nearly the same energy or sense of urgency that they started out in Orlando against Panama. So same lineup that started out a few days ago. And I get it. It was an amazing crowd, an awesome atmosphere.
Yeah.
But where was that sense of urgency? It looked like they were playing not to lose instead of playing with that same aggression.
Or maybe they just thought it was going to be easier. You just never know exactly the circumstances. Certainly, it's easier to have more energy and look more energetic at home. It just is. And it's very difficult for fans that have never experienced going down and actually playing in a qualifying game or being part of a qualifying game or coaching a qualifying game. It is just very difficult circumstances. But the one thing about the Trinidad game is there wasn't a huge crowd. Normally you have these, rambunctious, very, hostile environments, and it wasn't necessarily that. So it was, I think the fact that they just went down so quickly, maybe a little bit dumbfounded, and maybe, didn't quite realize how difficult a task it was going to be, because every team can play well, and Trinidad obviously showed on the night they could. So it was unfortunate they didn't do better in the game.
We're spending a few minutes with longtime MLS head coach and also assistant coach for Team USA under Bruce Arena. So you have that World Cup experience. Curt Onalfo with us here after hours on CBS Sports Radio. A lot of people pointing to the coaching change that you mentioned from Jurgen Klinsmann to Coach Arena. At least in my opinion, this wasn't ever supposed to be something the end all to be all. It was just that Coach Arena was supposed to get them to the point where they would qualify, and he was the guy that had the experience and could do it. But people are pointing to that coaching change. Now it's a big failure. You know him well. What's your perspective?
It wasn't a failure. I mean, in terms of the decision, he was the right man for the job. I mean, the U.S. was in a very, very difficult circumstance. Starting out 0-2, and with the experience that Bruce has, having done it before, he's started out so brilliantly. I mean, the first 4 games are undefeated, but the problem is just not a whole lot of room for error, and it turned out to be a little bit of a perfect storm in this game tonight and how it culminated. But you can't. To me, you have to look at more than just the coach. I mean. Bruce is one of the most successful coaches. Well, he is the most successful coach we've ever had in this country. And I believe in him all the way through. I think he's just an amazing coach, and I've known him since I've been 17 years old. But, there's a lot of things. I mean, our league, MLS, if you look at it, the 2 teams that qualified ahead of us, Panama and Honduras, that has an opportunity still to qualify, are a lot of those players play in our league,
right,
in Major League Soccer, and we're developing them. And we have this this system in MLS right now where it's very easy to get green cards, and then all of a sudden you play like you're an American. So if you look around the league, there's not as many as American players as you would think that are starting and getting these valuable minutes. And so I think whenever there's these type of difficult circumstances where everybody's going to look in the mirror and say, wow, we've got to do something. We have to get better. There's going to be a lot of things that need to be tweaked and changed. And in the end, hopefully this this terrible, difficult, awful moment for all of us as soccer fans will turn into something that, kind of catapults us to better days ahead, because we have a bright future in soccer in this country. Our league is getting better every single year, and more people are watching. So we have to look ourselves in the mirror, figure out a way to help develop our players and get a bigger, better pool of players so that we can qualify easily and not have to kind of suffer what we did this time around. But we have a lot of soul searching to do.
How much does this set U.S. soccer back to not make the World Cup for the first time since the mid-'80s?
Yeah, I mean, it's devastating. There's no two ways about it. But I do think that if we're intelligent about how we restructure things and tweak things and make things better, hopefully we can look past it and move on to the next World Cup afterwards. But it's going to be awful this summer. I'm sorry, in summer coming up.
Yep.
in 2018. Not having the U.S. participate in the World Cup. So, I mean, it's devastating. There's no two ways about it. But I'm one of these guys that has the glass half full and trying to find ways that we can, make it better so that we, can continue to get to where we need to be. But certainly it hurts U.S. soccer, but U.S. soccer and soccer in this country will prevail. But it's definitely a big bump in the road.
Curt Onalfo is a former MLS player and coach, as well as a former U.S. player and coach, and he's with us here after hours on CBS Sports Radio. I've heard things like blow it up, start over, wipe it out, and a lot of that is in emotion. But what do you do? You mentioned tweaking. What do you do? Where do you start, Coach?
Well, for me, the way I think the biggest thing is we have to have a platform where more of our players are developing in this country, and that's at the professional level. So we have to do some sort of we have to look at ourselves. I mean, MLS, it's not their job to actually develop the U.S. men's national team and U.S. soccer in general, the actual national team program, but there needs to be good synergy between the league and U.S. soccer so that we can look at ways to get our younger, talented players more opportunity playing in MLS, because that's our domestic league and the league is getting it's a dynamic league, it's a great league, it's a fun league to watch, and so I think that needs to happen. We got to continue to look at our youth development and how we're developing our younger players. But if you're looking, the U17 World Cup is going on right now, and our youth national team is actually undefeated. They beat India 3-0, and they beat Ghana 1-0, and they're on a very, very talented team. And I've watched those games, and there's a lot of talent there. So we have very good talent coming up. We just got to continue to find ways to make that better and make sure that raw talent gets better and better. But we have to look at how to get them more minutes consistently in our league, so that we're not developing the Panamas and Hondurases of the world, but we're developing our U.S. team.
Okay, so a couple of hard questions. Should the U.S. keep Coach Arena?
I think he's the greatest coach we've had in our country. So, and you're never going to hear me say anything negative about that man. So I don't believe it's a coaching issue at all. So I would say, no, that doesn't need to be done.
And what about some of the older players? I mean, I know just by virtue of the fact that it would be another couple years before we played a game of any meaning, plus another 4 years before you would be able to qualify again for the World Cup. I mean, how many of these guys are even with the team next time?
Yeah, I mean, the older players will be gone. It's just that simple. And anytime you're developing a national team and you're coaching a national team, you have to actually think long term. It can't be so results oriented where you're only thinking about winning a friendly game. A lot of the games you play are friendly. So what you need to do is you actually need to be able to develop a pool of players that can be competitive and get you to a World Cup. But at the same time, when the World Cup happens, which is every 4 years, the team is, that you have enough players that are in their prime, so you can be successful at that particular World Cup. So there's it's not like this easy thing to do, but you have to have a big plan. You have to play a lot of games. You got to get players lots of minutes, and you have to get younger player minutes. So that's the one thing now. We're not in the next World Cup, so now the developmental process can start, and we can start giving these younger players valuable minutes so that when they're in these circumstances, they're able to prevail.
Okay, so then last thing, should the head of U.S. Soccer and that administration be changed?
I mean, that's always the easy thing to do is
Right.
say we got to have, this enormous change. I'm actually not a huge believer in that. Who's the next guy that's going to be in charge? I mean, Sunil Gulati has done actually amazing things for our country. I mean, he was the mastermind, the guy behind the scenes of the 1994 World Cup that was brought to the U.S., and he's just tirelessly worked tirelessly for soccer in this country to make it better. And he's got enormous experience. He's well connected in FIFA. So I don't necessarily think you need to have these drastic changes at the top, but I do think that everybody needs to soul search, look at themselves in the mirrors, and find ways to do things better. And that's what will come from this.
Curt Onalfo is a longtime MLS head coach. He worked with Coach Arena for a World Cup. The U.S. won't be in the next one, but has also played in the system. I know it's hard. I'm sorry. I'm being such a sap because I'm so sad about it. But
everybody is. It's just devastating. It's a brutal day where you feel like you've just been punched so hard in the stomach.
Absolutely.
All the air is out of the sail.
Well, in spite of that, I appreciate your insight, especially from the inside. Thank you so much, Coach.
Yeah, anytime. Thank you so much.